special episode. In fact, the first of many episodes of a series with Dr. Carol Smeja.
Smeja.
We just went over this. Just went over this.
That was pretty close there. Perfect.
Smeja.
Oh my gosh, this is so exciting because this is the first one, really the foundational one. I'm going to kick it to you in a second for a little intro. But I have to say it's so exciting. We've gotten to meet with you a few times since we got to meet in person at Super Zoo. And this has really been an incredible exploration, really, deeper into getting to know our cats. So we're so grateful to have you here.
As our adopted daughter.
Yes, just for adopting Dr. Smeja.
Yes.
We'll go with Dr. Carol.
And I am officially adopted. I want everybody to know that, okay? They can reach me in Las Vegas.
That is true. This is true.
That's it. The papers are signed.
So this is really exciting series, guys, because Dr. Carol is going to teach us all about the science behind how our cats eat, behind our cats' eating habits, behind all of the stuff and things that make them tick when it comes to food and eating, right? And we're going to learn so much. We've already just in small amounts learned a whole lot from Dr. Carol, but we are now going to be with you guys, sitting back and listening to even more of the exciting things that she has learned and is teaching us about, and all of you about our cats and how they eat.
Before we dive in, though, Dr. Carol, will you give a short intro to everyone that has not yet had the pleasure of meeting you?
Well, it is an absolute pleasure to be with you guys. I am so excited about this and just sharing all of the knowledge that I've been working on probably for the last 6 years. And just to give you a little background, my background is in psychology and sociology. And when I got into the corporate world, I started studying how human eating behavior occurs, what drives it, what motivates it. Even came up with the notion of nutritional schizophrenia. People say they eat one thing, but then they really don't. And why does that occur? So over time, though, it was really interesting. We had a little Havanese named Pip, a little dog. And one day I was making chicken breast for her and cut it up on the board, and there were scraps and juices, and my daughter said, "Don't throw that away, give it to Pip." So I was a bowl feeder, and I put the board down on the floor, and for this next 10 to 15 minutes, this dog who would inhale her food let out the largest belch. I couldn't have people over when she was eating because they'd have tears streaming down their eyes saying, "What was that?" This little dog was so involved, walking around it and licking, and it was extraordinary. So when my husband had come home, I told him, and he said, "Eureka." So I took all of my research skills, my knowledge of psychology and sociology, how the mind works, how people interact together, and did a lot of reading, studied thousands of hours of videotapes. I volunteer at zoos to be able to observe behavior, and hopefully I'm going to be starting a project at one. And because the thing I realized, we feed from our perspective. We've never looked at it from our pet's perspective. And I think cats in particular have been overlooked, and they are extraordinary creatures and different from dogs. And we'll be exploring those differences as we go along as well. So after studying all this, I came up with what are the instinctive feeding behaviors of cats, and studied mountain lions, cats, just everything. And we came up with the Mind Pet Platter. And my husband was a product designer. And Eureka, this is the actual product that we came up with. I know it looks very simple, but we went through about 15, 20 iterations of this and tested it on 500 dogs and cats. And it's all about looking who your cat is from a physiological perspective and psychological perspective, what instincts are driving them, and allowing them to be who they are when they eat. And this is the biggest joy that we can give them, simply because they spent 95% of their time hunting and foraging and eating. And when we took their food source and pushed it into a bowl, it's like putting it into a fast food container. And we took away their enjoyment, their instinctive drives of who they are and what they want to be. So that's why we call it the Mine Pet Platter, because it's their personal feeding territory. And for cats, I'd like to call it the feline feeding field. You're actually giving your cat their own personal field for stalking, hunting, and eating from. And because they're the true wild child, they need this.
Yes, the
I
true
love it.
wild child.
And
Bringing it back.
for some background, I want to say that we did a cat tip on whisker stress. Basically,
Right.
like this is 101 information that we're about to do a deep dive with you into. And that video has nearly 20 million views. And at the end of it, we show the pet platter, the Mine Pet Platter that we were feeding our babies from, or a wide.
This is before we met
This
you.
is before we
Right.
even knew. Yeah, never knew you personally. And the amazing amount of people that were just like, "What is that? Where do I get one?" Right? It was incredible. And
Well, I want to say, because we have a comment here asking if it's made of plastic, and that's the number one
Oh!
question that we get. And this is why we were like, because when I got it, I looked and I was like, wait a second, but what is this made of? Like, this is
Yeah.
really cool, but what is it made of? Tell
Yeah.
us about how you chose the ingredients to make this and what it's made
yeah,
of.
let's get that one.
It is a plant-based material with cellulose fiber, which comes from trees. And my husband and I actually spent over a year and a half looking for the material. And the reason is it had to be very durable. It had to be easy to clean. We wanted it environmentally sound. So the sustainable forestry, when the trees are cut down, 5 new ones are hand planted 5 feet apart. So we're taking care of nature. So it's good for your pet because it's a species appropriate way to feed. And it's actually a warmer material because of the fiber in there. It's also good for the pet parent because you can cut on it and it's dishwasher safe. And then, of course, good for the environment.
I have to say, with all those little divots and lickable spots, I thought it was going to be a nightmare
to clean. It
'cause
is
we
the
hand wash
easiest,
everything.
easier
is
than
an
like our
incredible-
stainless steel bowls
Yeah.
and think, like the cups that we use, the glasses that we use, like easy.
Yeah.
to-
I want to give a
Well,
shout out real quick to Stephanie, who's already in here answering questions. You beautiful human.
Yes.
Stephanie from Carol's team. So if she answers a question of yours in the comments that we might miss, then just know it's coming from coming from the
She's
source.
legit.
Okay. and also, by the way, if you have any questions afterwards, you can, we're having a little trouble with our Facebook page. So you can always go to Instagram or our info, or of course, contact the 2 crazy cat ladies.
Yes.
But I did want to say one thing, because I've been noticing this more and more in the industry, and this sort of goes into the psychology. You mentioned how easy it is to clean. Everything about the pet platter is designed so the cat's tongue can fit into it and get every single crumb. And that's from the ridge going around, in addition to the scoops themselves. And the reason for that is, I know a lot of people use lick type products where there's tight corners. And what we found is food gets caught in there and the cat has trouble getting it out. And I differentiate between positive licking, which allows your cat to actually get to the food. So when they're licking, it releases positive endorphins in their brain, which is rewarding and relaxing. When you have a feeder that the cat's tongue cannot get to, they're smelling the food and they can't get to it. And that leads to obsessive compulsive licking, which can lead to frustration and anger. So the one thing I regardless of what you use, if you see your pet getting very stiff and obsessive compulsive licking, think about doing something to allow them to get to the food because they're programmed to get it. That's how they survived in the wild.
Yes.
All of it. I love that as well. In fact, one of our VIPs, shout out to Judith. I'm not sure if she's here tonight, but her kitty Octavia, she was like, I started putting like part of the food itself into the
Crevice around.
The crevice around the trough, like around there. What do you
Right.
call it? There's
the ridge. And this
ridge.
is the ridge, and this is the scoop. The scoop resembles the ends of bones. And then the ridge is to represent more of the rib of the animal. So they're sort of familiar with it based on wild feeding. But the important thing is the feeding experience has to be possible, positive. It has to be something that they can get to. So, yeah, that's very important.
So let's talk about this real quick, because you bring up the fact that, our cats are used to licking in the rib area and like this, like the type of, now the majority of us don't have cats that were wild necessarily in our minds, right? Like we didn't adopt a tiger. We adopted, like we rescued a cat from the street or the shelter.
Are you sure about that?
That's what I want to talk to you about. So tell us, why are these little babies,
little panther on my lap,
considered wild childs, even though they have not actually been necessarily in the wild?
Well, we're going to cover all of this because I have to tell you, over my research, I was dumbfounded at how close the domestic cat is to the actual wild cat. And just to give you a little background, domestic cats do have one common ancestor, and that is the North African, Southwest Asian wildcat, which, if you've never looked at it before, they're beautiful creatures. And this can be traced back between 10 and 12 million years ago. That's how far the evolution has come. But if you go even further back than that, you will see that lions and tigers were the earliest carnivore ancestors to your domestic cat. So that's why I believe in instinct, that our animals are programmed. Nature has given them a gift to survive in the wild. The more we pay attention to those instincts, the happier they're going to be in our lives as well.
Well, and especially for our cats, right? Because I know we read a study that said that cats are 95.6 DNA. Their DNA is 95.6% identical to a Siberian tiger. What did you see? Did you see it even closer when it comes to these other?
The wildcat.
Wildcat?
The wildcat.
All wild.
This is an amazing study. And if anybody walks away with one fact, this is what shocked me. Cats have diverged very, very little from their ancestors. They're homogenous. And that in itself is extraordinary.
Explain what homogenous means.
Meaning they're all the same. It's similar. And Dr. Wesley Warren at the University of Washington, St. Louis, he's a geneticist, and he actually did a study comparing DNA samples of a variety of domestic cats to the wild cat. And what is so amazing is that the genome is almost identical between cats and wild cats.
Isn't
Now,
that
when you think about it, there's over 360 breeds of dogs. Okay, dogs come in every shape, size, temperament, breed. It's very diverse. For cats, it's only 70. But what's so interesting, out of all the research that's been done, the variation typically has to do with their coats and the pattern on the coat. Because as grain came into civilization and people were storing grain, the wildcats came in to eat the rodents that were there for the grain. And so these wildcats were then used and were transported on ships, which transported grain, and their DNA was spread all around the world that way. But it's if you have a sort of solid color cat, it basically means they were in like open terrain territory. If it's striped, they grew up in areas with tall grass, and in the jungles and forests, it's more spotted. And that's how the different patterns evolved over time. But what I found so amazing is when you say the genome is almost identical, that means both the form and the behavior of the cat is similar to the wild cat. So your cat that you have in your house is basically a wild cat. And if you took your cat and let them go into the wild, they would adopt feral behavior and become nocturnal. Okay. And we're going to talk about that, I know. But I just find this amazing because it's basically saying your cat is a wildcat, and that's why they are the wild child that you love.
Well, and I love that you bring this up because I think for many of us, feline behaviors are a relatively new resource for a lot of people. They're just realizing that there are people out there that really focus on behavior. And I love that you're bringing up the fact that our cats are so wild still. And so behaviorists will try to explain it by saying there's really nothing a cat does that isn't from instinct of some kind. So they don't have bad behaviors. There's just something in the environment that is causing us to not appreciate one of their behaviors.
Yeah. You know what? I can share one thing with you. You had mentioned the DNA similarity of 95.6%. And because it is so close, it allows a hybrid to occur. They can interbreed between wild cats and domestic cats, basically. And people do that. But I will tell you this, there are sanctuaries now for these hybrids because it's great when they're kittens, but as they grow, the wild portion is dominant and most people are unable to control in the manner that they want to because of the wild portion in there. And that's pretty amazing. So it's saying you know, these can mate, but the wild side definitely isn't going to be suppressed.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. I think it's amazing when you look at, we're really focusing on the science behind how cats eat, why they prefer certain things. You know, we've looked at some of the basics of, I know we were talking to you about people that have reached out to us and said, my cat just won't eat. They won't eat. And it's like, they've got their food in their water dish right next to each other, up against the wall on a little like placemat that looks cute, right? This is where the cat eats. Your concept for the Mind Pet Platter, completely different. I mean, we'll say something as simple as, hey, try moving the food and water away from each other, because in the wild, cats do recognize that their food source will contaminate a fresh water source, so they don't like them close. And because cats are a little predator, wild children, right. Wild childs, they're also prey animals. So if you put them with their faces up against the wall, they have no concept.
Or a bowl.
Right.
Where they have to put their head into a bowl. Tell us more about that. What you had told us prior about putting their heads in a bowl and what that does for their sight.
Yeah, what you're basically doing is shutting down their peripheral vision, which is critical when you're in the wild because you have to be able to judge what's coming up around you. And especially with cats, if people see cats sort of in a crouched position. One of the reasons for that is that their legs are very, very powerful. And if they see something coming, do you know they can jump 9 times their height, and it will get them out of a predicament that could potentially bring chaos and potentially death to them. So when you're putting them in a corner, they're hearing all these things going on. Their peripheral vision is blinded, and so it's like, what are they supposed to do? It's literally like us sitting at a table having a blindfold over us and saying, good luck in trying to feed yourself. So I know the most popular place to feed pets is in a corner in a kitchen.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter who you talk to. We've all done it. So really, the best thing, you're going to see an immediate change in your cat's behavior if you just pull it away, allow them to maneuver 360 degrees. But because there are no sides on the pet platter, it allows 360-degree views. So it basically reduces the threat that they're feeling and allows for relaxed eating. So they're not going to be dumping it out of the bowl or relocating their food elsewhere. So again, just looking, they have an extraordinary sensory circuit, which is so powerful, and they can't shut that down. So we have to provide an eating environment where we basically pay homage to that sensory circuit and say, we know how you're looking at this. We're going to help you out here.
And like you said, it's one of the greatest joys that we can give our cats. I mean, we bring these wild childs into our four walls, right? And all 6 of our cats are indoor only cats. We believe in supervised outdoor enrichment. And when you let a cat outside, you see them just like, it's like you see that little predator come out or prey, right? They're very, very aware of everything that's going on. And I really like that, their meal times is one of the most amazing, enriching experiences that we can give. We've been taking baby steps on our journey to learn as much as we can and share it, and us all to grow together as a cat community. But we've started with like nutrition. Sure, they are obligate carnivores. Let's work on that.
Right.
And we had it in bowls for a long time, and then we're like, oh, wide bowls. Let's we got to get rid of the whisker fatigue. When we first put these platters down. And I think you're right calling it the feline feeding field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it is. It's like they get to, I remember the first time we gave it to Zorro, he walks up to it and he does. He will still walk around it and figure out which angle he wants to go in from first. And when we do videos, I feel bad because they're literally all over our house. We give them breakfast. So
and
dinner. But they're all, but we leave them out for, So they're you'll just see like, oh, no one finished it there. Whatever it is. Eat them wherever they want
to be fed,
to eat.
Where they feel comfortable. Yeah.
Well, and we even had cat parents sending stories to us about watching their cats perched up on bookshelves and come pouncing down on the pet platter, circling it, and then scattering away. So even during the day, you can use the pet platter as that stalking territory that they can engage with. And it's fun for them. And putting it in different places, I know that we've talked about this, is providing different ideas for the cat parents. What can you do in your own home to really bring this enrichment to them? Because they love it. It's who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Elizabeth Pickens says that both of her cats like to eat up high. And that's another thing with cats, because in the wild, right, they climb trees.
Right.
They feel, a lot of times they feel more comfortable up high. Is that, did you learn about that in your?
You know what? It varies depending on what your cat's experience has been, but definitely when you look at a lot of it, it can be at, any height. It's more related to where they feel comfortable eating, where their vision is not blocked, where the noises that are coming from various locations in your house, they can detect. because they have it's either 27 or 32 muscles in each ear, and their ears act like satellite dishes rotating like this, and they're taking in all of this information at a single time and digesting that. So your cat is pretty much telling you where they want to eat.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
It's very true.
Well, yeah, and there are certain cats that are they they like the ground hunt, or they like the jumping. But I know in your research we talked about this in one of our conversations that I found particularly difficult. I wouldn't have been able to do this, but really diving into watching how cats hunt, how cats eat, and that's difficult to watch for anyone that understands what an obligate carnivore really is.
Yeah.
And I want to dive into that a little bit, but I also want to ask you Rob's question. Hey, Rob, he's my favorite wordsmith. He said, Dr. Smeja, how would a single platter work out for holding 2 separate mounds of food for 2 separate cats? Follow-up question. And do you have a model with specific bacon slots? Because ... freeloaders, his affectionate term for his kitties.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I highly recommend that cats do not share a platter. Okay.
Explain why.
Because it's mine.
Well, I mean, well, go ahead.
Yeah, typically they are solitary hunters. Okay, and they don't need anybody else. This is who they are. They are responsible for catching their own prey, and nature has given them all of the sensory and physiological capability of hunting on their own. So you're basically invading their personal feeding territory when you're doing that. And the reason why we have the different colors, these were specifically selected because they have a different color parameter than we do. And they can see and differentiate between yellow and blue. And then red is oftentimes seen as more of a brownish or grayish. And so when you first start serving your cats with a pet platter, make sure you, at least the first few times, feed them on the same color platter. They will adopt that platter as their own, and they will respect the color and feeding territory of the other. So it eliminates another cat going over and stealing from that pet platter. But also you're giving them a gift of their personal territory that they know they own and they come to rely on. So that's why differentiating it is so important.
Yeah, we have 6 cats. For those of you guys that don't know, we have 6 cats, and we've got 2 of each color. And our girls get the red just because I said, we call them Princess and Angel. So I'm like, Your Majesty, like a red carpet. That's why I started doing it. I'm like, the girls get red, and then 2 of the boys get blue, and 2 of the boys get yellow. But we have never changed from the first time we fed them. We have always fed them the same color platter. We don't have their name written on it, which might be a good idea, especially for the girls.
Maybe.
Like write their names on it so that we're not like switching it up. So because their sense of smell is pretty strong, right? Like even after you've washed it, Friday would know that Madison ate off of that in the morning, right? Is that
right? Absolutely. Their sense of smell. In fact, I don't know if people are aware of this, but cats have very few taste buds. So they actually taste their food using their nose. And if you see your cat sort of opening their mouth, they're trying to catch that aroma. They have an extra scent organ called Jacobson organ way in the back, and that helps them to smell better. So absolutely, it is imperative. And here's the other thing about when you feed from a bowl or where the food is piled up. The carcass in the wild, they selected when animals, and I'll be careful with this, okay? When animals,
no, but you're fine. Adrian won't like.
I don't want. It's interesting. There's a circle of life, and I've come to appreciate that. And I know it is harsh, But in
Also
order,
really important. So explain it. Don't
yeah,
hold back.
they actually will make food choices when they're deconstructing a carcass. Now, if it's small enough, okay, sometimes the whole carcass will just be consumed. If it's more of a deconstructed type thing, they will select the internal organs they want to eat first, second, and third. So they're making food choices. When you stuff everything into a bowl or a small area, you're basically saying, shovel this down. You don't have a right to use your sense of the smell or really engage with your food in any way. And this is what they spent a great deal of time in the wild doing. So by spreading the food out on the platter and creating cat charcuteries, okay, and hopefully we're going to be sharing more ideas with your audience as we move into the future to sort of do a representation of a carcass or more of a sort of surprise area. Because even at the zoo, it's really interesting. They experience food monotony just like cats do. And we're always looking for putting new things into their diet to create that excitement and to stimulate their senses again. So, yeah, allow your cat to be who they are. Let them do the investigation. Let them explore. Let them make the food choices. And you'll see the amount of time they spent eating is more and more with each adventure on their field. So, yeah.
I love the charcuterie board idea. In fact, after we got off that Zoom where we were talking about it, I like went and I was like, what can I do just to make one? I just want to make one for lunch. And so I spread out like some of their like rabbit raw on one side. And then I had this, it was like a day to expiring. So I went ahead and used their goat whip.
Okay.
We got them for Thanksgiving, and I spread that in the middle, and then I put some of their freeze dried into the little holes on the other side.
Perfect.
And I got pictures, and it's like they were sharing, because I made one and brought it. I was trying to get a picture, but I went and made one and brought it to like Jack, and Madison's like, no, and they were like, oh. So I had to make another and go down. But yeah, it's so interesting because, you know, on I know you guys join our roundtable live with Dr. Katie Woodley and Julianne Thorne and Pam Roussel with Perfectly Holistic. We meet together usually like once a month, and they oftentimes talk about self-selection for cats and how important it is. And they're talking about like herbs. You know, Julianne Thorne with Naturally Cat, she has wonderful herbs, color therapy, things like that, letting the cats pick what they want. But when it comes to food, I think that's even more important, right? As far when it comes to, if we can at all. And I mean, it's actually inexpensive to make a charcuterie board for our cats. If you just want to, you know, cut up some different types of meat and, you know, and see what they prefer.
Well, to speak a bit about that, I love it. What did you call it? Food monotony, even cats at the zoo.
Yeah. If you serve, excuse me, if you serve the same foods over and over again, all animals will lose interest. Yep. And they will just walk away from a meal even though they're hungry. And I think a part of that is for survival, that if you don't have a variety of nutrients coming in from different food sources, you're not going to survive in the wild. They are pre-programmed. Nature helps them evolve so they can survive in their habitat. So I think one of the advantages of the pet platter is pet parents write us saying, I'm more involved in my cat's meal now.
Yeah.
I want to do more. When I go to get food, I'm thinking of them and what I can serve for them. And so I think we're bringing out more of the creativity, but this creates a bond, a stronger bond between the pet and the pet parent too, because they recognize, like when we have a particular animal in like a paper bag and we, you know, put it into one of the feeding areas, you can see, I mean, the ears go up, the eyes open, they're running towards it, and you can feel who they are on the inside, and you sense their enjoyment. So I'm working on a couple of ideas, and we're going to talk them because I want to bring some really fun ideas for your audience to be able to share with them.
I love this so much because I think especially cat parents are stuck in food monotony. Cats are finicky. My cat will only eat. My cat won't touch. You know, and I think a lot of that is almost you know, I do think obviously the food industry has learned of ways to include different palatants and things of addictive natures, you know. But when you do kind of realize exactly like you said about the bond, respecting a cat's space, understanding their personality helps build trust, respecting a cat's instincts and how they want to eat more, you know, they notice when we are trying to pay attention to their world from their perspective. And I really think that just this conversation, I hope, will kind of like open our eyes more to the fact that, you know, it's not that cats won't eat anything, but it's that we are actually not giving them the opportunity. You know, those studies that are out there that show that over time, cats will choose a diet that is more nutritionally complete than something that is
super smelly,
super palatable for them.
Right. Go ahead.
Well, no, I just feel like this is really going to blow the lid off of my cat will only eat this or that. It really will put the awareness on us to realize that we get to engage. We bring them into our homes, and yes, we love a little couch loaf, and we give them a little scratcher or whatever it is. But we really realize what a wild child they are, and how much joy they can find in their food and at mealtime that only we can help provide for them. I think it's really going to blow the lid off of how we look at feeding our cats.
And I think you're 100% right that it will, and it does build the bond between us and our cats when we do engage more with their feeding time, whether
and
that be
with love.
And prepare it with love.
Well, and there's one other study that I want to share with you because I really focused on how can I help cat parents know they have a true wild child. Okay. And I came across one study that I just thought was fascinating. The researchers looked at beef, chicken, salmon, freshly killed mice, rats, hooded rats, a whole variety of different foods. And they gave all these options to the cats, and each cat had its preference, okay, which again shows they make the choice. One cat will like this, one cat will like that. But this is where the wild child factor comes into play. Then they were feeding the cat. They didn't feed them for about 24 hours. Then they were feeding the cat their favorite food. And there was a live rat that was running around 4 feet away, but the cat had to jump down in order to get the rat. So lo and behold, all but one cat left the food that they were eating, walked the 4 feet, jumped down, killed the rat, brought the rat back up to the bowl, put it next to the bowl, and continued feeding from their bowl. And the reason is they're opportunistic feeders. If there is a live animal that is a source of food for them, they have to go get it. They left their meal, they went back to it, but they weren't going to leave that live mouse away and put it right next to the bowl. So no matter how much we think we domesticate these cats, just remember that wild child is in there.
Wow. Oh my God.
Anything explains it better than that.
Right. I love that. Carol, tell us more about the series that we're like the different topics that we're going to be discussing over the next few months.
Let's give them a tease. This is really the kickoff. I'm kind of talking about the understanding that our cats are wild cats. Do you want? I have some of the names pulled up.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So got so excited. So this
This has been so much fun. I love this.
I know. I love you.
We're already 40 minutes in, but I really think it's so important for us to look at, foundationally, the fact that our cats are wild cats still, are domesticated, sweet little couch loafs that love to come snuggle with us. Their instincts and who they are really does drive everything about them.
Mm-hmm. And in understanding just even this little piece that we're talking about today about the science that Dr. Carol gave us when it comes to how wild our cats actually are instinctively, how wild they actually are, will also help us in understand them a whole lot better, even outside of feeding. Just their behaviors in general will really help us better have more compassion for their instinctive nature, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want me to share some of the titles, or do you want to?
Go ahead. I mean, this is your creation, and I love these titles because, and I want everyone to understand too, just the amount of research that has gone into this. I know that all of us are like, ooh, why do cats do this? And why do cats do that? You really have taken such a deep dive and hands-on.
Spent hours and hours and hours.
And each one of these topics, I think, are so important. I mean, we can understand, this is important, but I'm excited for us to all walk through that research with you to better understand why. So share some of these great topics.
Okay. Honor thy whiskers.
That's coming up next.
Your cat's whiskers are phenomenal extensions of who they are and allows them to be a sole predator. And without those whiskers, they would probably not survive. But we're going to go into detail how they operate and the benefits that they give the cat. And of course, we'll have a few fun facts thrown in there that will help you bond with your cat a little bit more. Only the nose knows for sure. When you think about it, the nose is what is sort of guides these animals, and yet we pay very little homage to that during the feeding experience. Mm-hmm. The fact that we would even contemplate using a bowl means we're looking at it from our perspective. It's easier, it's more convenient to have it all in one small area. But what about your cat's nose? So we're going to introduce you to a lot of facts about that and some of the things that we can make you aware of to avoid problems with the mucus in the nasal cavity as well. When food gets caught in the nasal cavity, it can wreak havoc, and we'll go into that as well. Then this is one of my favorites, night moves. And we're going to be talking about, do you want to say something about that, Jay? Because we had a long talk about it.
I was just going to do a dance.
I love this so much because you shared with us some of the research that was just a tease to this conversation as far as that age-old question of
are cats nocturnal, right?
Right.
And we've always said, everybody says that cats are nocturnal, but they're actually crepuscular. When she learned this word, she's like, this is my favorite word in the world.
I love it. But being more active at dawn and at dusk, that opportunistic hunting time. But we are going to go into all the science behind it. So
yes,
night moves is something that I'm really looking forward to. And for anyone just joining, really excited. So this is the beginning of a series of conversations we're going to be having with Dr. Carol to better understand and love our cats.
Yes.
Right.
There's one more, right?
One more is wired for sound. We're going to share with you the sound system that your cat is blessed with.
We're going to explore our cats, every bit of them. This is so much fun.
There's so much.
And the studies and the research and the science behind it. That is what's really exciting because, Dr. Judy Morgan is here. We love you so much.
Love.
Hi, Dr. Judy.
Or shall I say Santa Claus?
We saw that video today.
That was my favorite Santa ever.
But I'm so excited to really dive into the research and the studies that have been done. People think that, there's no research done on cats. There is. Now, granted, not as much as research is done on dogs, but there is so much research when it comes to cats. And so I'm so grateful that you are joining us to help share so much knowledge with so many cat parents that that will absolutely need and love this knowledge that you have to share.
Well, I want to thank you. And you know what? I feel that cats haven't gotten the attention in the research world. And that's why I'm referring to the platter as a species appropriate feeder, because it's designed for the physiology and sensory components of your cat. And it's the greatest gift that we can give our pets. It really is. And thank you for giving me a platform for sharing this. You two are fabulous in helping spread information. And, you know, this is my mission as well. If we can help our cats live their best possible lives, then I've accomplished what I wanted to. So thank you. You're fabulous.
Thank you for your passion for our cats.
And thank you for being the mind child behind this beautiful Mind Pet Platter. We are, I mean, our cats love them. Everybody sees it all the time now because we're always filming our cats in one way or another. So you guys are, I think everybody that's watching is probably super familiar with the Mind Pet Platter. But if you don't have yours yet, get your cats one for Christmas. You can use the discount code CATLADIES, mindpetplatter.com. The link is scrolling here at the bottom. It's not a link,
Stephanie
but the
also dropped
code
it in the comments as well.
Yes, and Stephanie has dropped it in the comments, and it's in the description. So you guys go ahead and get your kitties.
I know they said that the cat platter is sold out, but we've got the bone platters, and they do like Stephanie said, they do the same trick. Our babies love them. And they are perfectly stackable and easy to wash. So I don't know if I would ever switch it up.
And the small platters. So they have the large, the small, and then the cat isn't yet out, right? But they have the large and the small. The small is actually a perfect size for even our largest cat is 20 pounds, right? It's still the perfect size.
Get the small platter works perfectly. And based on the size of the cat as well, you want to make sure that when they curve their body, rotate it, which they have a great spine, and we'll talk about that sometime too. It gives them the ability to control their feeding environment. So you don't want to go too big or too small. In both of those instances, they lose control and a predator can get to them then.
I love that. If that's why Zorro circles his.
Yep. I love it so much.
You guys
are the best ever.
Carol, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that joined us. A reminder that this is just the beginning. I'm so excited that we've got a series planned to really deep dive into who our cats are.
Yep. So go ahead and hit that follow first button so that you are notified whenever we're going to be planning it shortly hereafter when we're going to be coming on for the Honor Thy Whiskers.
Honor Thy Whiskers.
Episode. Yes.
That's going to be a great one. So
mind blowing. There were so many things just in our conversation about some of the things that you discovered, because we know like they're such an important sensory organ. We freak out when people are like, can I just use scissors to cut my, it's like
people ask us all the time, can I trim my cat's whiskers? We're like, no.
They're really long. They're really long. I should trim them. We're like, no. So, but some of the things that you shared with us in your deep dive in the research is just mind blowing. So you guys, this is just the beginning. And like Jay said, follow first, be notified. The next time that we have Dr. Carol on, we are so excited. We're so grateful to you for your passion and for your knowledge. And I'm so glad this is just the beginning.
Yes. And thank you guys all for joining us tonight. Happy Thursday.
One more thing, Carol, I'm giving you the last word. Did we forget anything? Is there anything else that we want to pack into this one?
I don't think you guys completely covered it. I'm telling you, it's great to work with you. You're fabulous together. You make a perfect pair at this. And I look forward to the next one. And happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Prepare a charcuterie for your pet.
That's right. Let's do it.
Charcuterie.
Good night, y'all.
Good night, guys. Let's see.